any other methodology. So this is their concept for how to do it, where you have a curve table. It harkens back to the telepresence days. If you remember that. Yeah, exactly. And so they basically took a page from the telepresence book. They also want you to put cameras in other places in the room. You can see there's a camera here above the whiteboard, and then they're dealing with cameras here in the Teams front row system a little differently, as you'll see with an update coming in the near future. They want you to put a camera here, and they want you to put a camera here, and the two cameras will sum themselves together inside of Teams room and actually form a centered image, so that when you're looking at the screen at the people, they see that you're looking at them. The camera will make it look like remote participants look like you're looking at them, even though the cameras are on the side. So it'll create one image out of two images that center the image. So this actual setup is actually out on the show floor. How many of you noticed that Epson did this in the entrance of the show floor? I would encourage you at the end of the session today to go look at that, because this is actually exactly what Epson is showing you. They actually have a package system. They've actually partnered with Java, and they've also partnered with Logitech to provide a full system. And I understand they're going to do Poly and others as well. But you can actually order the entire thing from Epson and then deliver it. They've actually taken some projectors that are 4K capable projectors. So 4K, what they call 4KE, which is that's what they call their pixel shifting technology, and they've masked them to be 21 by 9. So they've actually, the projector, when you turn it on, it's masked at 21 by 9. What's cool about that is you can actually move the image up and down the mask, right? So it's sort of like giving you a barn door effect on a light, except with a raster that you can manipulate. So you can actually push the image to the top of the LCDs, or put it in the center, or put it at the bottom, depending on how you mount the display, right? So if you want zero offset, you can actually accomplish that. So that's kind of cool. But even though you're not using the whole imagery, you're still getting most of the light output. So you're in a 7,000 amps in this projector, which I believe is what they're showing downstairs. You're still getting somewhere around 5,000 amps lumens out of it, which is, what is it, 10,000? So
it's
10,000.
You're
getting 7,000 to 8,000 amps lumens out of it still, because obviously you're not getting all your light output because some of it's being blank. But ultimately, this is interesting. Now, when they also launched it, they also launched in the platform of 32 by 9. So they say there's two versions of front row. You can either run a 21 by 9 or 32 by 9. This to me is way more interesting, I think, because now we get a very large digital canvas. We can do whatever we want with it. And your content, you now have multiple content sources, right? You have the ability to put 2 1080 images. And of course, if you open up any of the presentation software, the default is 1920 by 1080, right? And you can scale up from there. But that gives us the ability to have 2 pieces of content up at the same time. Still not perfect, because there's some limitations here, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But I don't know how many of you realize, now of course in this application they're showing it, you would have to either do this rear screen, but in this application, this is a Microsoft image as well. They're assuming you're going to do this using LED, so it's going to be very expensive to use this for LED. However, the LEDs do exist. So we go through the different companies that are sort of like leading the space that you can go see. Most of these you can go see on the show floor brand-wise, but you may not be able to see the product on the show floor because most of the brands didn't bring anything. Epson is the only one that brought a full system. But Epson has as a 21 by 9 aspect ratio all-in-one LED kit for Microsoft Teams. So you can actually have an all-in-one, which you basically just plug in an HDMI cable, from a Teams room computer. And ultimately, they say they're going to build it into a system on a chip. So now, Teams rooms you can actually put on an Android computer, and as long as your device has an Android player inside of it, then you can actually host it on the device. So you see companies like Logitech, as one example upstairs, they actually have the Android version of their product. It's called the it's called the Panicast 50 system. I think they call it the Panicast 50 system.
Oh, that's Java.
Or sorry, Java. Java's Panicast 50 system. That is the one that has the Android Microsoft Teams Room or Zoom Room embedded on it, so you don't need a computer. right? So this is kind of interesting. This is LED, obviously. This is a picture I took from ISE. This is NEC, Sharp NEC introduced at ISE. They haven't brought it here to the US yet, but it will be here in the US this summer. This is a 21:9 LCD display. So this is 21:9 LCD. You can see here, here's one camera, here's the other camera. They're using Huddly to sum the image so that you have you're looking at the center, and then the cameras are on the side. And that's using Microsoft Teams Room to do that. This is the LED version of that, 32:9, and this was actually curved. They actually showed, this is another picture from INC. This is actually a curved application where you can use LED for 32:9, which is kind of interesting. This was a shot from the Panasonic booth, and this guy, I don't know if you can see this or not, but they actually, this is using two short throw projectors. Right? See, they're right, the projectors are right there. And they're actually building a 21:9 or 32:9. So from the same system, you can do 21:9 or 32:9. Again, none of these companies are demonstrating this upstairs except for Epson. This is the system that they showed at IMC. This is their setup at IMC. Again, 4K projector, short throw lens. That's poly, right?
Like SB1 cam professional.
What is that?
Like SB1 cam. The IQ.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I'm not sure what that is. It's either that or the Rally. Who makes the Rally model? Yeah, so I can't remember who makes who now. There's so many companies out there building stuff. It could be the Rally bar. I'm not sure. We'd have to look. But ultimately, there's your camera, there's your microwave, and your speakers all in one. And of course, you could put speakers here as well. This was very popular. This was right at the entrance of one of the halls. And this received a tremendous amount of exposure and traffic. Actually, I think we actually gave it an award to this year. Abacor has an LCD, part of their L series. I don't think they have that here either.
They couldn't get upstairs, it's downstairs.
Oh, it's down? Oh, they do have it downstairs?
Well, they shipped it, they didn't bring the cartridge.
Okay, so they didn't actually, they're not actually showing it.
Yeah.
So it's in a box.
It's in a box somewhere down there.
That doesn't help me. But ultimately, that's an all-in-one. And again, it accommodates 21:9 and is a large form factor. It was incredible. It looked incredible at ISE, with the exception of one problem, which I'll address in just a second. Jupiter, their application is cart-based. Samsung, this was interesting because Samsung allowed no photos and no videos in their booth, but somehow I got these I remember going back to my office and Emily was sitting back there like, how the F did you get that picture? They won't let us in their booth. I just walked right in and nobody stopped me and I took the picture and there was, what you can't, I cropped this picture, what you can't see is the Samsung guy here and the Samsung guy looking at me take the picture. So they didn't stop me from doing it, they didn't say not to do it, so I took the picture. But they haven't launched this product in the US yet. But I wanted to show it because I knew that people would be interested in it. And again, you can see that they're actually showing it using Microsoft Teams with the front row concept there. So why do we really care? What difference does this make? Because we have, we have Barco on one side saying, wait a minute, you shouldn't have dedicated rooms, right? The Barco ClickShare conference, in case you haven't noticed. The concept behind that is don't build a dedicated room, but actually plug all the devices into our ClickShare device, and you can run whatever application you want at any moment in time using the app on your computer. So instead of using the Room app, then you're actually using the Zoom app or the Teams app. So that's one way to do it, right? That gives you a universal room. And the person who's using the room would know how to use the room because they're using their own laptop. They just walk in, they just make sure that the camera selected is the one that's in the room, and the mic and the speaker is the ones that's in the room. Just like you would do if you were sitting down at your desk at home and you had multiple microphones, you switch microphones. But in where it's going to be obviously very successful is in the corporate environment, the banking environment, the financial, anywhere where a corporation has sort of deemed themselves a Microsoft company, right? This is sort of like just a by default kind of application. They're not going to use a BYOM experience. They're going to say, you know what, 90% of our communications internal between offices, we're going to use Teams to do that communication, so we're going to build Teams rooms so it's a walk up and use kind of experience. So, but why we should care as AV people is, number one, we now have immersion in a room. So regardless of what room we build now, even if we decide that that room is going to only be used for teams for 10% of the time, and we have that room 90% of the time for other applications, right? Because it's going to be very expensive and illogical to continue to build rooms that are purpose-built rooms, right? It's just too expensive, and we have fewer people in offices now. I mean, you've seen all the stories. The most famous one's been passed around in our industry over the last 2 weeks. I've seen a lot on LinkedIn and other places, is the conversion of the 60-story building in New York City from a office building to a residential building. That was substantial, right? I mean, that indicates an interesting trend, right? Whereas that would have been the opposite. You know, at the least, we would have converted a home, an apartment building into hotel, right? Or maybe even a commercial building. But the fact of the matter is, we're using less space, so we're not going to have purpose-built as much. So therefore, we're going to have these rooms available to use for other things. I love the idea, and you've heard me talk about for many years, 5-6 years now, this concept of the digital cameras, having a very large image in a room. Like, obviously at a hotel this makes no sense, but imagine if this was an actual training room. Why wouldn't you just fill the wall with projected images and then put whatever you want up at any given time? Oh, by the way, I mean, Dave, you and I are the oldest two people in the room. And is it not amazing that we have fluorescent lights on and incandescent lights on, and the projector looks like this? Like, if we just stop for a moment and just consider what we have been through in the industry 20 years ago, the concept of this, we would have thought this would not happen until we were dead. It's amazing. It would take 6 hours to set this up 20 years ago, and it would also be literally 1/10 the brightness, like 500 answers at best, right? It's amazing. So immersion is a big factor. The other factor is PowerPoint and Keynote, which are the primary two presentation platforms, don't do anything but 16:9 for most people. Most people don't go in and change the default. And it outputs 16:9, they output 1920 by 1080 resolution. Some even go to 720. So now we're going to have all this real estate on the screen available to do whatever we want to do with. So if you come in and you're making a presentation or you're presenting to the local and there's no remote participant, are you just going to have a small image on the screen and you can expand it? Like, what are you going to do with that extra space? You might as well put more content on the screen and put all your content on the screen and decide to present non-linear. Put whatever up you want to put up at any moment in time. But to do that, we're going to have some new technologies that are going to kind of come out of, and that's why I kind of called this session the MTR effect, because there's some new things that are happening because of what Microsoft did that aren't necessarily going to affect teams as much as it's going to affect the industry. Much like the pandemic created new opportunities and new products, Microsoft Teams will create new opportunities and new products from companies that you can use in other applications, like camera AI technology. So one of the things that's happening with camera AI technology is that ability to put a camera here and a camera here, sum the two together so that when you're looking at the people in the middle of the screen, it looks like you're looking at them. Because on the far side, one of the problems we all seen is when we're talking to somebody who's looking at us like this. Right? It just is a weird kind of environment. Yeah, on the remote side, we've also had situations where the integrator decided to mount the camera here, and as you walk in front of the camera, you're getting a view of this, right? That's an uncomfortable thing there as well. So the camera AI technology is interesting, and I also am excited about the fact that the Hutley multi-camera experience is quite sophisticated, such that they want you to randomly place at least 3 cameras in a room, and they're going to kind of and seam the image together in the room. So it'll sort of be like this fluid image that can kind of put in frame whatever they want to put in frame at any moment in time, including a whiteboard. So as you go up to a whiteboard, all of a sudden the whiteboard appears. You don't have to switch to a whiteboard camera. You don't have to change the view or anything like that. So, but it's blurry. So I wrote an article a month or so ago, and I posted on LinkedIn saying that hey, Microsoft, this cannot be that hard to fix, right? So if you were at my keynote this morning, I alluded to it. What the problem is with Teams rooms is if you go read the spec, they're giving you a 1080 image, basically. So they're giving you a resolution of something like, whatever that would end up being, something like, I forget the number, but it's like 2250 by 1080, right? So, because remember it's 21:9 aspect ratio. Maybe it's a little higher than that.
3440 by 1440.
What is it?
3440 by 1440.
That's their spec of what they want from you, but they're only delivering you a lower resolution image. So what ends up happening is that when you put the content up that is not shared content or not video content, but the wrapper around it that has the people's names and the chat, it's blurry. It's blurry. Yep.
But does that account for